going to be talking about my latest trip to the first ever Let's Talk EV show in where I stay, which is in Hall. And trust me, it's just packed with some little bits and pieces that I eventually came across. So, what were my first impressions basically? When walking to the event, I was immediately picked up by the buzz, people around. They had different lots of cars around. I spoke with different car salesmen. So basically, it was a show that different car dealers came together and they tried to start up a show, which I think is quite a very commendable thing that the council and the different car dealers eventually decided to do, which is a good thing. It's all about bringing up the net zero and to foster electric car use. And for me, someone who is probably thinking of trying to get an electric car or possibly a plug-in hybrid, is one of the things you would want to consider and just see what's ongoing. When you look at the advantages, it's very sometimes can be quite enticing. I know some people talk about not having a very long range, but if you're someone who does intracity commuting, do you really need a 400-mile EV car range? Let's be honest with ourselves. And I think there was a time, there was something I came across on TikTok. I can't really remember who actually gave this analogy, which was a very interesting analogy. And when mentioned if we had electric cars first and fossil cars came later, we really adopt fossil cars. And I think it spans from the talk about the advantages of EVs. So imagine you started what you knew initially was a car that doesn't make noise, doesn't produce emissions or gases, it doesn't have multiple parts and that you have to deal with in terms of the engine. You have to take it to a station where you have to fill it up. You can't charge it at home. You can't do any of such. And now you're now being told for you to get a car that you can't charge at home. It's going to produce lots of emissions. And the only advantage is you don't have to fill it if you drive 6 hours straight. When you really think about it that way, doubt most people will be thinking about having a petrol engine or a diesel engine car afterwards. So I think it's quite important we try to understand that to some extent, EV cars are more beneficial in terms of servicing. You still have some moving parts that would definitely you have to repair and the rest. And one of the problems is a car with a big battery, but and there were quite a lot of people talking about battery degradation. But now we've seen, because we have EVs for quite some time now, we've seen people who been driving their EVs for 8 years and no issues, and people just having as little as 20% battery degradation, which is pretty impressive. There was someone I saw who has had his Tesla for about 8 years, his Model S, then that came with free supercharging for life. And he's driven 450 miles on that car. And he did supercharging almost all the time he's had the car. So that's pretty impressive, isn't it? So, anyway, that's just it. In terms of the infrastructure is still getting up. We're still having some charge stations coming up. Not as fast as we would have hoped initially, but now you can charge your cars at home. The whole push for having solar panels in your house, and now with new builds coming up, I think with the government in the UK, I think by 2027, I'm not completely sure. So by 2027, it is expected that most new builds should have a solar panel. And that makes sense now. So you basically being able to generate your own power and you being able to fuel your vehicle with power that you generated at your home seems like a pretty renewable stuff to me, and probably on the long term more economical compared to when you have a petrol or a diesel engine. So let's get into it. So one of the things basically I did talk about with some of the dealers I came across with were of course mileage and range, and everyone talking about real world driving range and manufacturer claimed range. And of course, we all know now that when you drive on a motorways on an electric vehicle, because of limited regen braking, you'd have some lesser mileage compared to when you are intracity and regen braking helps recharge your battery. But of course, you don't completely get your car fully charged when you're driving with regen braking, because that will be breaking the laws of thermodynamics and anyway, but you'll be breaking physics because you have to lose some energy when you're transferring energy from one form to another. Right. So one of the cars I came across, the first vehicles, fortunately, some of the features I got were not so good. It was quite painful because I thought I was going to have very good features. But one of the cars I saw initially was the Lexus RZ 450e. And on the first glance, it oozes luxury, especially in the rear seat, which felt posh. For the front cabin, honestly, it felt a bit too clunky for my liking, and the driver's area felt crowded. There were a lot of things around me. So I felt like, I don't know, the spaceship that is very small. So I didn't really like that. I'm still kind of the person who likes the text in the car. I'm not really a fan of 0 to 60 in 2 seconds or 5 seconds, because we are in a country where maximum speed is 70 miles per hour. Where are you rushing to, man? You can't go and be driving 80 miles per hour. You get a ticket for that, right? And I didn't really go into those details for trying to get, but it was just about how you feel in the car, and that's what was the thing for me. So for people who are rare passengers in the Lexus RZ 450, they would definitely enjoy it. The other car, which I think was a surprise stuff to me, was the Hyundai Kona EV. It really felt like when I spoke to the dealer, the guy who was talking about the car, he was really hyping it for me, I must say. When I hopped into it, and wow, it really surprised me. And the cabin felt more smart, uncluttered, and very practical. So I would say, on my own opinion, it's definitely a family-friendly car. When we went to the boots was fantastic. Multiple storage spaces in the boot, quite significant good storage space. So I think it's really a good car as a daily driver, especially for a family. So the other one I saw, fortunately, I couldn't get the video. I don't know what happened, right? But no problem. But I'll show you some pictures of the cars. Was the Ioniq 5N GT. I know it's Hyundai, right? But oh my goodness, it had the GT. It was more like a GT inspired version, like a super futuristic kind of version where it tries to mimic car sounds. You could change the different sounds, but I didn't like it, to be honest. It just felt like a speaker attached to under the vehicle, because I think they've done some good job anyway, trying to mimic that feel you get when you're driving a GT vehicle. But I didn't feel it, to be honest. But I know maybe some people may like it, but it wasn't really my thing. I just felt it was more of a gimmick. And I think if you're going electric, I think just give it my silence and something intentional and not a synthetic growl. So that wasn't for me. So there are other ones, and one of them was I stopped by the Mini Cooper EV. Still felt like Mini Cooper EV. No, Mini Cooper with that you remove the engine and put in a battery. They only feel something out of. It just felt like the Mini Cooper, and I'm sure the Mini Coopers are made by BMWs as well. So I didn't really feel anything out of place. The other cars I saw were the MG5 and the Ford Explorer EVs. They both look decent, to be honest. They really seemed very practical. And the Ford Explorer especially had a strong road presence. Looking at it, fortunately, I couldn't drive it. But again, nothing wowed me at first glance. And there are cars that probably need a proper test drive to shine. And maybe I'll have had more if I had test driven them. Then I came across the Toyota BZ4X. It gave me RAV4 vibes, to be honest. So I just felt it was like a Toyota RAV4 that they took off the engine and just put the battery and the EV and drivetrain, and I think that was it. So it felt more of like a deja vu entering the car and going around the car. So not bad, but my biggest letdown, to be honest. So my biggest letdown, Mercedes EQB 250 plus. Now, I can't really say much about feel of driving of the car. When I entered, it really just felt very predictable. So it just felt like the typical Benz. Used to be a good thing, still a good thing, I guess, but it just felt really predictable. And I don't know, I kind of expected more, but probably I would say, because for me, these are all the first impressions. When you enter the car, how you feel in the cabin, how you feel in the rear, generally, which is typical of Benz. When you sit at the back, it feels a bit luxurious and everything, but still the same typical Benz, I must say. And I actually expected more from Mercedes. Probably when you drive the car, much better. I knew it had a longer range, but unfortunately, I couldn't really see anyone to talk to around the car. Just appeared whoever I was supposed to talk about, maybe it was with someone else, so couldn't really have a good chat about it. But one of the cars which I actually did test drive and I feel was a showstopper, because I've had one friend who one told me about how much he loves this car. Oh my days. The Polestar 4. I don't just know how. I mean, first, when I entered, quite comfortable when you sit in the driver's area. Console was very modern, seats were ultra comfortable. Back row was spacious. But guess what was a twist? No rear window. So how do you have a rear mirror? What are you going to do with the rear mirror? The rear mirror is a screen, which when I did a test drive of the car, felt a bit awkward, but usually you just kind of get used to it. You have to keep on adjusting it in such a way it's more comfortable to the eye. Absolutely no rear window. Like this is the first, not the first time, anyways, but that was the first time I've driven a car without a proper rear window. And I've driven cars where the rear window is completely blocked because of lots of stuff you're carrying, but a car with literally no rear window. But what was weird at first, but once I got used to it, was the regen braking. Initially, it was quite strong, maybe a bit too strong, but usually after 2 minutes, it felt made the one pedal driving feel super efficient. It was, I literally, I don't think for the 20 to 40 minute test drive I did, I went on the motorways on top speed and taking my legs. I don't think I ever used the brake, maybe just once in the 40 minutes drive. Intracity motorways, it was fantastic. You get used to it, but unfortunately, I lost the footage. So painful, right? But tech fails sometimes. But trust me, it was a real vibe. I really loved it. The Polestar did a fantastic job. Problem with the car is quite expensive. Of course, it's a luxurious car. So when you are going to pay the tax for road tax for the car, it's going to be pretty expensive because of how it was, because of the rules that have been changed this year. But it's still worth having. Really good. Really love the regen braking. The feel of the car and the cabin and in the rear seat, they felt fantastic. And so those were I think that was the main car. But my final thoughts and a bit of some letdowns I had, there was no BYD and no Tesla inside. Why? What happened? Anyways, and to be honest, those were the two cars I was really hoping to see and have a close look at. The Teslas and the BYDs. The BYDs have been coming up with quite a lot of cheap vehicles, small, the Seagull, the Dolphin, the Seal, so many. I think I've lost track of the C names they tend to give it. But those were the ones I would have really loved to see. It was disappointing considering how dominant they are in the space. And then I was quite impressed that now there are EV trucks now on show for proper haulers going all electric. That was quite impressive. Of course, I don't know how to drive a lorry or a truck or whatever. So I just glanced through them. I just passed through them and I said, oh, these are EV trucks, which was quite impressive. So that was it. Now, to sum it all up, the whole show has its highs and lows and gave me a clear picture of where electric cars are going. Then I think they also had e-bikes and the rest, but I didn't really go into that. And it was quite a commendable thing to have a show about electric vehicles, have people answer your questions. The only thing I would have loved more in the show, which I think probably I would suggest, is things like home charging. If you're calling it, I know it was an EV show, but it doesn't hurt to talk about home charging. Doesn't hurt to talk about solar and different means of charging your vehicles and other EV car accessories, if there are any. I know some people are talking about little power banks for your cars when you run out of juice, which you're not supposed to you're not supposed to have in the first place. So different little texts like that will have been quite interesting to see in those show. But I think long in all in all, it was quite impressive. And I hope you really enjoyed this little deep dive, and don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell for more reviews. Thank you. See you next time.